Hi, let's talk about the conglomeration strategy of growth through diversification and the pros and cons. Initially, if we talk about India, what used to happen in India before, I would say, 90s, 1990s, was that we were a protected economy. There were trade barriers, import export barriers. It was not really liberalized. There were internal restrictions, not enough privatization, not no globalization, not much globalization. So Indian businesses found it difficult to grow. There was something called license quota permit Raj, inspector Raj. The business, even if it wanted to grow in its, there was a lot of difficulty in getting license to start a business, and then getting the government to agree to expand your capacity and all that. So what businesses used to do was they tried to lobby hard and get licenses, see to it that others competitors wouldn't get those licenses, and then try to get grow in that particular area. And when that didn't work out, they would get more licenses and grow in other areas. So growth was in this way. They tried to get into as many areas as possible where they could get licenses, where they could preclude others from getting licenses, and then they grow. And that's how they grew. So it was a lot of conglomeration. That's what was happening. But after 90s, when liberalization, privatization, and globalization started in India, what happened was that big foreign multinationals entered India, and they were big compared to Indian companies. They were strong competitors. So Indian businesses felt that if they had to compete, they would have to now get more focused. And when they had this big foreign competition, they would have to focus the resources in a particular area to compete against the foreign entrant. So they couldn't afford to waste their resources on so many businesses. So they started thinking of getting rid of other businesses and focusing on only some businesses at which they were really good, and at which they had a chance of giving a tough fight to the foreign competition. And this is the period when C.K. Prahalad and Gary Hamel came out with their core competence theory. Core competence was like stick to your knitting. Do things that you can do the best. You can't be good at everything. You can't be good at every kind of business. You don't have the competence, the basic. You have a certain core competence, certain basic skill set, and that is useful to you in some particular area or industry or business or sector. And it doesn't work everywhere. So realize what your core competence is or core competencies are, and only get into those areas or businesses which match your core competencies. And don't diversify too much. Don't get into areas where you don't have core competence. So this kind of made sense at that point of time. So people ditched conglomeration as a growth strategy. Conglomeration has been there in India and abroad also. And after Prahlad's core competence, conglomeration was not seen to be a very good thing to do. Even the stock market started talking about a conglomerate discount, and businesses which were conglomerates, the market value of their companies were discounted kind of by the stock market. They were not valued very highly. So this is the core competence theory, which goes against the concept of unrelated diversification or conglomeration. One could argue that, logically, why is it that you can't acquire core competence if you don't have? For example, if I have money, if I can invest money, I can acquire core competence. I don't have the skills, but I can acquire those skills. I can buy those skills. I can tie up or have get into bed with companies which have those competencies, or get those companies to partner with me, or get those executives who have those competencies and give them and hire those professionals with those competencies, and let them acquire a new business, hire a guy who can run that business who has the competence, and let him run it on his own, give him the freedom to run it. So theoretically, I would say that core competence is something which is a bit of a debatable issue. I do think that one can acquire core competencies if one has money. Either you do it yourself. If you can't do it yourself, you get others to do it. You can monetize. Most things can be bought. Most things can be bought, not everything. So sometimes you can identify those partners and those form those alliances, or get those executives and give them freedom to run those new businesses that you don't know much about. Well, that's the debate, but that is still an important issue in strategic analysis. Thank you.